Good evening and welcome to TDM Talk Show. Our guest has been serving as a directly elected legislator since 2005 and has been re-elected for a fourth term last month. José Pereira Coutinho is also the president of the Macau Civil Servants Association, which has just celebrated its 30th anniversary. Mr. Pereira Coutinho, thank you very much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's good evening for everybody. It's really an honor and a great pleasure to be in this station. I feel really happy.
Let's start. We have a very ambitious agenda, of course, but let's start by talking about last month's election. You mentioned more than once that it would be a tough battle. It wouldn't be an easy ride. But at the end of the day, you even increased the number of votes you secured compared with the previous election. You managed to garner over 14,000 votes, but that was not enough to re-elect the second in the ticket, Leung Wen-chai. Looking back, it's been a couple of weeks already. Was it a victory? Was it a defeat? Was it...
Yes, it's a mixed feelings. Definitely we are happy, but a little bit frustrated because we could not keep it the second seat. But it means a lot to us because I think that the society have matured and people understands the reality of Macau. And that's good because when you have an increase in citizenship of the people means that they are participating, and it makes us really happy that because a lot of policies that the government comes up sometimes does not reflects the aims and the needs of the society. And we think that society is moving overall for a better future.
Judging, looking at your political platform and at your record over this 12 years already as a lawmaker, you are often labeled as someone from the opposition camp, from the pro-democracy camp, anti-establishment camp. How do you regard yourself?
Oh, they call me for everything. Yeah. But the thing is that we need really all together to participate, to exercise the citizenship. And when sometimes we do criticize, we need to have an act of constriction of yourself to see if how do you behave in the past, how did you participate, how even if you feel that you are able, you should also run for the election in any kind of election, I mean associations, legislative assembly or others. Because by doing that, you are exercising the citizenship, which is very, very important for the future of Macau. We have a basic law. A basic law, I think that the Macau people overall are very lucky to have a basic law. And inside the basic law, we have a lot of guarantees, rights, and articles that protect us. But it's nothing if we people do not exercise what we have inside. We inherit this basic law. We don't have this in any part of the world. But if we do not use our citizenship, we do not push, and we do not be in the society by exercising our rights to give their opinions, to the right to assembly, to the right of all kinds that we have inherited in this basic law. This is nothing. So it's important for us to participate in different fields so we can upgrade finally the quality of life of the Macau people.
Now that you mentioned the basic law, let's go straight to Article 27, which I believe is a major concern for you and for other legislators for sure, but you have been putting this ranking pretty high on your agenda. And I'm talking specifically about Article 27 when it comes to the right to go on strike and to form trade unions. There is no trade union legislation regulated in Macau, neither collective bargaining arrangements in the law. You have put forth several. How many times? 8?
Oh,
7, 8?
I have no count for that because more than 5, 6, 7.
But you've constantly and repeatedly failed to win
Yes,
over your
we
peers.
must understand that right now in our last assembly, we don't have a majority democratic legislator because out of 33 legislators, we only have 14 direct elected, and the remaining are all indirect or appointed by the chief executive, which means that for the past 17 years, many policies that were really good for the people, and a lot of direct electors submitted those and tabled those laws, were rejected by our colleagues because they were following a different agenda, and they are not really willing to offend the government by submitting or going against some policies that the government considered not really suitable or not ripe for the time to be submitted. So, but as you know, we are taking the oath on 16. Immediately after taking the oath, I will submit for the 7th time, I think so, the
trade
law,
union bill.
The trade union bill, the collective bargaining right to strike, because it is the only remaining basic fundamental workers' human rights that are not regulated. So if you don't have them regulated, which means practical ways in our daily basis that the workers in Macau are exploited in their workforce, and not only that is enough, but also the labor law itself should be taken in consideration to be revised, because we are not happy by the way that the government comes up now, just tackling some small issues that we consider peanuts.
So you think there should be an overhaul, a comprehensive amendment to the Labor Relations Act?
Comprehensive and wide scope, and should also be revised because that law was passed more than, I think, 10 years ago. So like one of the articles that says that you can be dismissed without excuse. As long as you have money to pay, then you can be fired. Secondly, why there is so much discrimination, like if everybody in Macau can have the subsidies for shift and nighttime work, why only those workers who work in the inside casino are not able by law to receive those shift and nighttime work? It's totally discrimination, and this comes up again that we right now don't have special independent bodies like the ombudsman, or like what we have in the same special administrative region in Hong Kong, bureau that tackles independently about complaints about regarding government office. So in Hong Kong, they have these two bodies that the people can go. Right now, what happens in Macau,
but there is ombudsman
have a
service.
complaint, if you have a complaint against a specific government office, you need to hire a lawyer. You need to hire a lawyer, pay a lot of money to get your right back to your own person. So in Hong Kong, it doesn't happen like that. If you feel you are badly treated and against the law, you can go to this complaint against office. It's the office that receives complaints against government office. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is that the Article 25 of the Basic Law states very clearly that you should not be discriminated. And you have in Hong Kong an office that tackles all types of discrimination. It's called the Ombudsman. So we don't have that in Macau. And what happens when you are discriminated in race, in language, in color, or else? You need to.
Is that happening in Macau? Is it serious?
It happens. It happens a lot, like such as you are not well look. I mean your facial. They discriminate on age. They want younger people. If you reach 30, 35 to 40, any male or female. You are discriminated because they prefer a younger, but they openly tell you that you are not suitable for the job because your age is already exceed our expectation. But that doesn't mean that you are not able to work in that field or in that particular job. So we are a lot of years behind Hong Kong. And so we should establish some mechanisms and we should upgrade. If we want really to be an international city, in a city that attracts talents, a city that is really equal, we have a lot of monopolies. We have monopolies on politics, starting with the Legislative Assembly. Because you can be a legislator if you shoe-shine the government and you get elected by being appointed by the government. If you have money, and that is discrimination, you can have a lot of associations, like 200, 300, and you can be elected indirectly through this way. So there is a monopoly in everything, in economic activities, like the pork meat, like the vegetables. How and why the government construct infrastructure and then give it directly to a company, and that company runs the whole vegetables in Macau. So they rent the places inside infrastructure constructed by the government, and then the other peoples need to knock the door to get a space to sell the vegetables.
You're talking about Nam Yut and also Nam Quang and all these companies.
Exactly.
You did touch upon a number of important issues. I would like to address one of these issues which regards your role as a legislator. You have, as I was saying, over the years, you have submitted a number of bills. But you have failed to secure a majority, though you have managed, in the case of the trade union bill, to nearly secure a majority last time. Is it because, first, why is this the case? And secondly, how will the Legislative Assembly one day be willing to back a trade union bill?
Let me first of all say that it's not a failure, it's a courage.
I know, a failure, I mean, in the sense that they haven't supported your the number of votes.
Being a legislator, you need to be independent. You need to respond and be accounted to the people. So the first task and the main obligation of a legislator, according to the basic law, is to submit bills. And the second and the most important responsibility is to check what the government is doing and account them for the good, for the bad things, and say when they are doing good. Because it's not just blaming everything for the bad and not saying the good things that sometimes, and not very often, they come forward. So we will continue to submit bills because it will be a pressure to other directly elected legislators and those who are appointed, that the society and the press have been saying they are academics. I don't consider them fully academics because you need to check the background of each of them, and you will see that some of the academics that come from UMAC are running mates like the Mr. Chen Weingam, number 3 in 2009, and the others belongs to Jiamen community, which did
was backing
opposite
Mao Zedong's bid.
Exactly, did the counter protest against the
Perks bill,
the bills about the top government officials. So you need to check the background. They have the facial. So. The point is that when you can see the really true identity of this legislator is when they press the button to support or go against, or just they don't have a position about that.
Would you say that this is also a way, somehow, in your view, to see the true colors of the
Exactly. That's why we are submitting on 17 and let them remove their mask and say clear-cut, are you in support and are you complying rigorously what the basic law says? And it is also a pressure for the government, which always come up to us and in the press meet, that we must respect very deeply the basic law. We should respect very well the basic law. So the basic law states that Article 27, that we should regulate the trade union law, the collective bargaining, the right to strike. And one more issue, we have international conventions from ILO, 98.
International Labour Organization.
Exactly. And number 87 and 98, which applies directly to Macau under Article 40 of our basic law. But it cannot be really used by the workers directly because they don't have the mechanism. They don't have a body that can represent them through the courts and also on their behalf with the employers. So that's why we need to have this regulation. We have it in mainland China. We have these laws in Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, everybody, we have them.
So Macau in this respect has been an exception. Some of the lawmakers who have either abstained or voted against your trade union bills have said that, well, they would not be against it, but they think it should be the government to take the first step, saying that, somehow hinting that we live in a so-called executive-led system.
They're quite honest. Because what they're trying to really say is that we need to receive the order from the government to push forward this regulation. So I don't know who are them, really can be direct elected or can be appointed or anyone. But it is true that they are waiting for the red signal or green signal to move forward.
Will there be a green light from the government in this new term?
Let's see if the society moves forward, because this recent election really show up many things, and I think that the way that people voted for the new faces that we are going to have in the Legislative Assembly, I think that the society had changed and we are moving forward. But still, besides the fundamental rights that we have been discussing, we still need more from the government in terms of transparency. We still are not positioned in terms of ranking in the Transparency International. It's really surprising that China is inside the ranking, Hong Kong is ranked before 30, and Singapore is among the first 5. So Cambodia, Vietnam, everybody is ranked. And when you try to find the reasons why Macau is not ranked in the Transparency International, it's because the Macau government itself does not give the relevant information about the numbers and the things that they need to evaluate. When you see the exceeding budget that you see in most of the biggest infrastructure that we have, it is the tip of the iceberg for the corruption and the abuse of power. So if you don't have the complete transparency, if they do not respond and be accounted to the people, yes, we have problems of abuse of power, and that goes finally to the corruption.
Mm-hmm. Many of our viewers are non-resident workers. And several associations of migrant workers say they've been left behind and in many cases out in the dark when it comes to a number of public policies, social security, healthcare, and other welfare policies. What do you think of their situation? What have you been doing to lending them a helping hand?
Let me be clear-cut on this issue. Macau would be a dead city, a cemetery, without them contributing to the fast and good economic development.
We're talking about 180,000 as we speak.
We are talking about 180,000 blue cards that are working in Macau. It's a lot of people. A lot of Macau citizens could not work and could not do business if they were not here. So we must guarantee them the basics of the international conventions, basic human rights, basic and equal treatment in terms of...
Is Macau doing that?
It's not doing that because even the locals are exploited. When you see that locals are also exploited, it means that the people that represent the employers are very tough. You look at what is going on in our last assembly, and in this past election, we have been trying to spread the votes, not to vote for the bosses in the last assembly, because what they want is more and more benefits for their own private interests, for their business, and not to vote for those who are in the gaming sector, because what they want is more and more things like a license to operate. So this is clear cut. If you look at the Chinese government, he opened the casino immediately after the election. This is just something that you can see that even the locals are exploited. There are a lot of issues in Macau, such as why do you discriminate ladies in Macau? Why the civil servants ladies have since 1980s 90 days full paid maternity leave.
But if you are working in the private sector?
If you are in the private sector, at that time we fought from 35 to 56. And they are satisfied. And they are now coming with a crazy,
what do you think of this proposal?
Crazy solution of maintaining the 56 and giving additional 14 without pay. Yeah. That's unfair. That goes against Article 25 of the Basic Law, which discriminate.
But the government would say, well, that's a step forward because there would be a slight improvement, and they are also introducing or about to introduce paid paternity leave.
I'm very sorry to tell you that I can only respond to you that this is a complete and direct discrimination against the ladies according to the Article 25 of the Basic Law. I think that if someone one day, and now even can do that, why a lady, because of his job, working for the civil service, has 90 days fully paid, and why a lady, a same lady that works in the private sector only have 90 days, only have 56 days, yes. And then you give additional 14. That's not correct. That's not good. And this gives a bad image of Macau if you want to be an international city, unless that you keep it for yourself.
You were pointing out that the local workers are not being respected, their rights, let alone, of course, those of the non-resident workers. But I'd like you to focus a bit on the blue card holders. What would you be willing to do to protect their rights and to push forward their agenda?
What we have been doing now is exactly to try to pass the bill to create a trade union. If we have a trade union, those workers that are very exposed could be protected because someone, third party, could talk to the big casino bosses and tell them they cannot be put in 5 different shifts in 1 month.
And this would benefit, of course, all workers. That's
exactly all workers, including the
blue card holders. Many also of our viewers are domestic helpers. And another complaint regards the de facto minimum wage for domestic helpers. We don't have it legislated as a minimum wage, but the 3,000 pataka mark, it is is at least the lowest salary that you can offer. As a sponsor, as an employer of a domestic helper. And the salaries are in the midst or among or in the range of 3,000 to 5,000. Isn't that too little to make ends meet in Macau? The cost of living is skyrocketing. Do you think it should be on the agenda and should be increased?
Let me tell you something. Everything that has been cooked around the past 17 years regarding labor laws is under a council for labor issues and laws to be revised. And that council, the members are just a minority of the society that in terms of representing labor rights in Macau. So we have been trying to ask through we wrote many letters and written interpellation requesting to open the doors so more representatives could be inside. Why I'm saying that? Because it's always cooked inside the things between the employer and the employees' representatives, which does not, in my case, I represent everybody, all the laborers in Macau, that come up that, okay, this time we only tackle some small issues of the labor law. And the other things we don't discuss. And let's, you all Macau citizens, give your opinions.
So you think all these issues should be on the table?
Should be on the table.
Including the
Exactly.
rights and the laws governing non-resident
and
workers?
should be discussed, openly discussed, and it should be fully transparent in Macau. So there is a lot of things that should be done in terms of openness, in terms of cutting and putting a dead end on the monopolies. Why discussion of labor issues is a monopoly or some AGOM or some...
AGOM is the Federation of Trade Unions, the largest workers
and some representatives of the Macau Commercial Association. We call it Association of Chambers of Commerce. Why should be between only them? Why don't you open this issue? And the government...
Talking about like social coordination committee, where you have these discussions,
exactly.
tripartite analysis
exactly.
of the...
It's a small unity of tripartite.
You think it's not representative?
Does not represent everybody in Macau. So if you go through this election, and the chief executive should really understand and take the results in terms of moving forward. I think that the chief executive, as an example, he appointed some members that we were against because he should have picked back the 15, 16, and 17 that were left over from this election, because they represented a part of the society through direct elections. So this is something that the chief executive and the government should understand. Who are these people representing in this election, and what are they saying? So if you look at what we have been doing for the past 17 years in Macau, they just ignore and keep moving forward. So that's why big scandals do occur. You remember that in 2006 we have the Almond Long scandal, and then repeated with the Ho Chi Minh scandal. But the problem is not why do we have corruption scandals in Macau? The question mark is that why we don't have a system that can detect situations that occur inside the government, including the top officials. They are doing something that is corrupted. We don't have this. How can you explain to me that Ho Chi Minh, the ex-public prosecutor, committed 1,600 during the past 15 years, which means that almost every day he was committing a criminal offense and no one detected. So we need some kind of thing that we have proposed in the past 7 years, which is called the whistleblower. We have whistleblower in Canada, we have whistleblower in the United States.
Whistleblowers.
Exactly. Those who are civil servants and detect corruption situations inside, or criminal situation inside his work, can be protected. They cannot be demoted. They cannot be transferred. They cannot be fired. So these are legal procedures. Nowadays, what the government case, they created a body to receive the complaints, but no one trusts. They don't have the confidence, because if you submit this complaint by appointed members from the government, who trusts? No one.
But the Commission Against Corruption does have an ombudsman unit. So you were pointing out that there is no standalone body, but there is a department within CCAC in charge of handling these complaints. And also you have the Commission of Audit, so you have these watchdogs, so to say.
The Commission Against Corruption has a contradiction powers, two powers that contradict itself. One is that to defend the human rights, and the other one is that they have the criminal procedure right to incriminate, to investigate corruption and criminal case. Those two things contradict itself. If I want to relay a complaint about the human right, and they can also prosecute, how can they really put that? We have suggested to separate these two powers by two entities. Commission Against Corruption should only incriminate cases of corruption and nothing more. We should have an entity totally independent, like an ombudsman or something else, that protects the basic human rights. I don't think that it's correct to let the citizens to hire a lawyer to pay heavily to them, which is not cheap, just to protect the basic human rights. Basic human rights has no money that can really evaluate the value of the human rights.
Before we wrap up our talk, coming back to another issue that has been sparking controversy, especially among non-resident workers. This regards the proposed bus fare when using Macau Pass. So according to the government's proposal, if you are a blue card holder, you're going to pay more to get on a bus while using Macau Pass. Your take on this?
This reminds me in South Africa, when the whites were in the front of the bus and the blacks were behind. It's a nonsense. It's a crazy thing, you know. Why the blue cards should pay more? They are contributing to the Macau society, and they are getting less. So why they should pay the same with the tourists?
So it should be the tourists paying more and not the blue cards. That's your point.
Exactly. Of course. Why the blue cards and the locals should be treated differently? Of course, the tourists that they come, everybody has things in many countries like taxes in the airport that it's inside the fare of the air ticket. This is acceptable. Even in Hong Kong, tourists pay more for some airport developments, airport construction and everything. The tourists pay. But the locals are not paying for that unless, of course, they buy a ticket. Yes, in that situation is it. But they are still treated differently than the tourists. And those who are living here, working here, contributing here, should not be discriminated.
And now a final question. As I mentioned at the beginning, the Macau Civil Servants Association, of which you are the president of the board since 1998, if I'm not wrong.
The longest serving board of directors, yeah.
So it's celebrating its 30th anniversary.
Yes.
And I did come across an interview where you were kind of opening the door, or
yes,
willing to open the doors to blue card holders, to non-resident workers for some sort of membership. Would you elaborate on that?
Yes, we are now discussing, including changing the name of for private Macau civil service and private sector.
Because you already accept non-civil servants.
Exactly.
Since a few years ago, right?
7 or 8 years ago, and it's been very successful because at that time a lot of Macau
you were criticized for that.
Yes,
right?
a lot. It was my idea. It was solely my idea. We discussed in the board of directors, and finally we took it to the General Assembly. The members discussed, and they voted, and they supported. So if you take in consideration this election, when a lot of citizens voted for us, actually a new hope is a creation of the Macau Civil Association. And it's been very successful. We are now 4th ranked in Macau election, which is very, very good. We have been keeping increasing. We started since 2001 when we run for the Macau election, and we at that time got 4,500. We are now 14,000, so it's a good numbers. It means that the road that we took to open, but of course, we need to provide quality services to the members. You cannot just open, but if you don't have the services, we don't have the human resources to provide quality service to the members. They keep coming, but if you can't handle, it backfires you because it creates a sense that you're only receiving members but could not support them, could not provide services for them in terms of quality. So we are now moving step by step. We are, the association was created in 1987, which at that time was having 1,000 members. And just before the handover, Rita Santos, the President of General Assembly, she masterminded a revolution, a reform inside the General Assembly and the Board of Directors and created a new system inside to provide quality services to each member. And it's been very successful. Its members still remain until now, which is really a surprise for me that those that she invited are still members of the association. So we are now moving forward after this election to let the Macau society understand that we are open for everybody.
So those who criticize this move say that you have been kind of jeopardizing the Civil Servants Association identity by opening the doors to non-civil servants.
That's not true, because I'm still the most representative civil servants in the last assembly. There is no representative beside us in the last assembly. I'm the only one, civil servants and Portuguese in the whole China, to be a member of the last assembly, which gives us a lot of responsibility. And it's been an honor in my life to serve the civil servants and the Macau citizens too. So we continue to become big, better, and we hope, but also very careful to provide quality services to the people that we
and the services,
attract them as a member of the association.
And now this will be the final question. The services that you are providing, you're planning to provide, would also include blue card holders, and what kind of membership could they get in the new
We are now
system?
discussing inside, we are right now having a specific meeting in this coming Thursday, because as can give you the information, I'm leaving for Geneva for the Public Service International, for the General Assembly, the PSI, which gets together each 4 years, is 150 countries send their representatives from all civil servants around the world. So in Macau, we are the only one association that is member of this important Public Service International based in Paris, and they are holding now in Geneva. From that, I will fly with my colleagues, Council of Portuguese Community, to Portugal to be in the meetings of...
Because you are also a member of the
Portuguese
Overseas Communities
yes,
Council?
Since 2003, is a long way, already more than 12 years. So we are having meetings with our colleagues around the world, which is around 70, including Venezuela, United States, and Africa, around a lot of people. And we will be also having meetings with the Foreign Office, Portuguese Foreign Office, members of the government. We will put in the table our passports. We will thank Portugal for extending the new ID for 10 years, which has been our request for a long time. We will table to Portugal about the retired people that retired since 1999. They are living in Macau. Although some of the issues like the subsidies for residency that the Macau government used to give them, and we will tackle this thing with the Chief Executive of Macau when we meet him in 24th of this month before we fly to Geneva. Chief Executive already accepted, and we accepted his invitation for this meeting. We will tackle that. We hope that the elders are really happy in Macau. We hope that civil servants are good, a small body but good with the e-government, and we hope that everybody in Macau is happy, because Macau is treasured with a lot of income, but the quality of life has been downgraded. Something is wrong in the policy decision and problem solving that Macau government needs to upgrade their capacity so that everybody in Macau is happy.
And with this, we wrap up our talk. Yes, always like that. Mr. Pereira Coutinho, thank you very much for joining us.
Deeply. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And to you at home, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week.